Hallo. We're going to do this in English because my panelists are not all German native speakers, so bear with us. While we maybe show the first video about some examples of Arthouse games in the last couple of years, I want to also briefly say some introductory words before we go into the panel discussion. First of all, I want to thank the Medien board and, of course, Republica to have us here. Thank you for making this possible. It means a lot to us. And videos playing, maybe first video? It will show in a minute, I guess. When we talk about art and Arthouse games, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction what we might think about today. When we think about the act of play, which is embedded in gaming, the act of play is actually older than the act of doing art. But maybe the act of play is the first and oldest form of doing art. So maybe that have been connected from the very beginning when we humans started to play. And art represents the big other, the magical antipole to our mere real-life existence. And I won't debate, by the way, that games can be art, because that, to be honest, would be ridiculous, right? But I rather want to discuss the implications of games as being art and what does that mean, and what Arthouse as a term means to us on stage. And Andreas Rosenfelder calls games actually the Gesamtkunstwerk, a complete synthesis of all arts of our modern times. So maybe that's also something we can talk about today a bit. And if we define art as a form with which random objects can be taken out of their original context and prepare and keep them in a static way over centuries, like in the culture of remembrance, what we just heard in the introduction, what does that do to how we make and how we perceive games? That's also a question we want to talk about today. One festival that tries to give these answers every year, bit by bit, is the Amaze Festival. And the Amaze Festival is an international series of events celebrating independent and Arthouse games, immersive media and digital culture. It was founded in 2008 by artistic director Thorsten Wiedemann, and it hosts the International Games and Playful Media Festival annually in Berlin. It just happened 1 week ago, actually. And we have an annual award show. You can see some impressions. It's at the Silent Green here in Berlin, a beautiful place in Wedding. And they have several awards, like the Digital Moment Award, the Human Machine Award, the Long Feature Award, the Explorer Award, Most Amazing Award, of course, the Wings Award, which focuses on marginalized game makers, and of course, the Big Audience Award winner. At the Amaze Village, there's an interactive exhibition space where you can play Arthouse games. They have a stage program much like this, where they have panel discussions and some hyper talks and other things, and of course workshops. But now let's get into our panelists. And first, I like Adrien Larosé from Arte Games to introduce himself, and maybe we can show his video of Arte Games in the meantime.
Yes, hello. So I'm Adrien. I work at Arte France, and maybe I will let the video runs if it runs. But yeah, basically I'm head of producing and publishing activities on video game and XR works, and a range of other interactive kind of things. Because yes, Arte is making games, which is surprising for a lot of people. But the idea behind that is basically that yeah, Arte has this mission to support European creation for all screens and not only for TV. By the way, I will be angry if you say that Arte is a TV channel because it's more of a media, a cultural media platform. There is Arte.tv, but there is also all kind of content on all kind of platforms, including games. And yeah, the way we work in game is the same that we would support author documentary or author movie. We can also support author games.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can get into how you choose your games and what kind of games you want to publish a bit later as well. You can see some of the examples on the screen that they published in the last couple of years. There's also one game that we might specifically talk about later. It's Wednesdays, which is really a very interesting project.
That you can play over there, by the way.
Yeah, and you can play all the games we discussed here, also at the on-screen booth outside. Next up, I want Natasha Seven to introduce herself, please.
I'll give it my best. Hi, I'm Natasha Seven or Natcha, it's up to you to choose. So I'm actually a teacher. I teach game design with a focus on storytelling and narrative design. But next to that, I work as a game dev in that context. I'm currently developing Psychotic Bathtub, as you see, but don't hear, but still we see. So you're Ophelia and you're sitting in your bathtub and you're having a psychotic episode. You can talk to your duck who claims to be your dad. You can add more water to your bathtub, but please be careful. You might flood your whole bathroom. And every choice you make will lead you to different endings. So it's a multilinear narrative. And in that context, you might wonder why make a game about a psychotic episode. So for us, or for me in the beginning, it was all about creating awareness, about creating talking points, because psychotic episodes and mental health in general is still something which is so much stigmatized, and we are afraid to address it, to experience it. And we often also forget that it could happen to every one of us. And many of us are affected, even if we aren't aware. So that's it.
Yeah, we will also talk about the connections and crossroads about mental health, gaming, and entertainment a bit later. But before that, we have one final panelist to introduce himself, Moshe Linke. Hello.
Hello, I'm Moshe, and I am. Yeah, it's always a bit difficult to explain to others what exactly I'm doing, and I think it's best to describe by an experience I had as a small child. I was always dragged into a lot of museums at a young age, and I didn't understand at all like what the surrounding was or what the pieces in the museum was. But one thing that stuck to me was just the space of it and the experience to explore this architecture. And this somehow stuck to me, and I've started to use game engines and games in general to express my artistic ideas. And this kind of snowballed into more and more, and a lot of more people online found interest in this, and a small community built. And now I'm very happy to be here and talk about this more in depth.
Yeah, that's really interesting how you got into your artistic career, so to say, because when we look at your examples, it looks more like classical art in a digital world than what we would think of when we talk about gaming. Yeah, there's no ego shooting taking place, or no Super Mario jumping and stuff like that. So, and even if we compare to other artistic games, it's very much different to that. So we will get into that. Welcome to the stage, and let's begin with the term Arthouse games, because that's a term that might be relatively new. I haven't heard it a lot, but still it represents something that might be fitting to all of you three and your work. What do you think about the term? Would you agree to that statement, that it helps like describing your portfolio, or do you have another term in mind, or how would you describe your work? Maybe we start with Adrian.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I used for several years the term author games because at some point in the discussion it was quite complicated to define what indie game is. So, okay, everyone knows what a game is, but indie game, that is a quite common term. means many different things from so many different people. Does it mean that you are independent from a publisher? Does it mean that you are independent from, I don't know, like artistically, financially? So it was a little bit complicated to redefine what we did, and to be honest, to convince the board at Arte that it made sense. I used that term of author game, with, I don't know, it really makes sense in French at least, just to say that they are film d'auteur and documentaire d'auteur, and there are some author games too. That and it on board it comes with a lot of some kind of imaginary. Other kind of parameters that you link to that, like the fact that it is maybe made by a small team, maybe it is games that want to have an impact or that explore things artistically and so on. So I use that term just because it fits what Arte does, and it just rings with the rest of the editorial line of Arte. But I quite like the term Arthouse. It really works well internationally, I guess, even if I don't really quite find the right translation in French, but this is my problem, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is a thing that we need to talk about as well, like, because gaming is a global thing, is a global aspect, so we might need to find expression that all are useful for the whole world to use. Maybe if there's not a literal translation or a fitting translation, we just need to use Arthouse games as a general term. Natasha, what do you think about Arthouse game? Is Psychotic better than Arthouse game?
I think so. I think I'll leave it up to you to tell, because I find it quite hard to put labels on anything, and on my game especially. I think, especially when it comes to games about mental health, we often tend to put things like serious game in front of it, or I also struggle with the term awareness game, because it always gives us that feeling of, oh, this is now very educational, and I have to be educated, and I am not allowed to I am allowed to talk about it, but I'm not allowed to laugh, in a way. And I think that stigma is what we try to break. With Psychotic, you are allowed to laugh and cry and all of the things you might feel and want to feel. And I think Arthouse, to get back to the question, yes, it sparks pictures, and I think, or at least for me it does, and I think those pictures sometimes correlate with what Psychotic does. But for me, the term also has something quite elitist. Elitaire?
Yeah, elitist, yeah.
And I'm not quite sure if that's what Psychotic, or what I think games should be. I don't think they should be something you can only talk about when you know what the term means, because I seem to struggle with the term. So I'm still hoping for a better term to be found.
Okay. And would author game fit better to you?
No. No, I think it could fit, but I think, again, and I'm only talking from the standing point of Psychotic, the problem then is that people often think already now that the game is my story, and that, for example, I am Ophelia and I'm telling my story, and that's not the case in that context. So.
Yeah, I see the difficulty. But yeah, that's a really good point that you mentioned, that Arthouse can also be perceived as elitist, or at least niche, or as something that only a select few can understand, because of course it translates over or comes over from the Arthouse movies. Or Arthouse films, and that also is, when I mention that to people, everyone already has some sort of idea what Arthouse movies look like. Most of them think, oh, they're French, they're black and white, a lot of smoking, nothing really happens. So it's a stereotype. It's not like, that's not my opinion, but yeah. So I get that people might be somewhat, chased off if you say I'm making Arthouse games. Then they think, oh, I might not understand this, or this is not for me. But maybe it's just for them exactly, but they don't know it yet. But Moshe, what do you think? Arthouse game?
Yeah, I think it's kind of important to have a term for it, because in some way, for someone who's not that familiar with these type of games, they might think, oh, this might just be like an indie game. And even though this is true, I think indie games these days can mean a lot of things, and the term kind of grew a lot, which also is often in a very commercial context. Like we have AA games, for example, that are way bigger than just one person in the basement crafting this, a very personal story. So I believe we definitely need something to put this under one umbrella and to have people understand this is a very personal project that is important to the people who created these projects.
So would you say that is like, if we want to define Arthouse games, is that one of the defining markers, that is a personal project?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can only talk to myself for myself, but in a lot of ways, as an artist, I have very personal ideas that I want to put into existence somehow, and I chose to use a game engine for that. And so, in this sense, yeah, I think they definitely check that box to be personal projects.
What else do you think would we need to add to the definition? Is it like something that is non-commercial?
No, it's funny because when you said that maybe it sounds pretentious, I think this is something that is really specific to the game industry or the game makers, that they are not really that at ease with claiming their position of artists as you would find in other industry and arte, because we are working with both, I don't know, documentaries maker or movie maker and game maker. It's striking how like someone making a movie would not say, oh, I'm not the one to say if it's a movie or not. Like, they know it is, and they know if it is like author or something that is more responding to an audience need or request. And yeah, it's interesting, I think, to just wonder if it's our role to define what we're doing, or if it is something that we are waiting for the audience or the public or the players. And yeah, this is a really important for me difference between these industry and how games place the player in the center of the creation. Yeah, it's interesting. Just I note it.
Absolutely. You want to add?
Yeah, to catch up also on the role as we as designers in that context take. I think it's important, and that's now very much from the teacher perspective. We are designers in that context, or artists in that context. And what I think is also important to differentiate is sometimes, or is mostly, of course it's important to be a gamer in that sense, but in the end we have to take on another role when we start to create games in general. And I think this role has to be not... We have to think what we can take from different disciplines in that context. Let's go back to graphic design, for example. I think we as game designers could learn so much more from art or graphic design in that context, just by how we lay out our games, how we try to get a message across. So I think what I perceive as Arthouse games in that context is that they take on many different disciplines and many different learnings, and they don't just build up on what we already know from games. They don't build up on Call of Duty, or seldomly, I think.
Yeah, that brings me exactly to my next question, because that touches on the industry in general a bit. Like, Call of Duty would not be called an Arthouse game in our definition, but can an Arthouse game be like something that's also very mainstream? Because, like you said, we don't use just the same things, but we try to do new things. But at the same time, most of the players out there, or most of the people who play games, just want the same thing over and over again. Like, how many Call of Duties do we have? How many GTAs do we need? How many whatever FIFA do we need? So there's this friction between having something that the people know and like and want, and something that adds something new to it. So how can Arthouse games maybe infuse that with something new?
I don't even know if they need to do that, because I feel like often you want to speak to a very specific audience, an audience where you know these type of people, they seek such experiences. And I myself, I am very happy with the smaller group of people who enjoy these very experimental and abstract things. And for example, in my case, I've always released my projects in a very small sense. And at some point, I've actually released one of them on Steam, which was a very interesting experience, because the audience on Steam is very, very different compared to people who know what they get themselves into. So this was definitely something that made me realize I might not even want to speak to too many people. I want to speak to the right people, whatever this means.
You want to add something, Adrian?
This is something that we think about a lot at Arte as publishers. As publisher, because we want to make the games that the artists are making available to the wider audience and make it as successful as it can be. This is what you ask to your broadcaster or to your publisher, basically. So we know that we are involved into a niche, but this is a really big niche. The thing is that this niche is expanding. I don't think it's exclusive. Like people playing Arthouse, I'm pretty sure that people at Amaze, 95% of them at least played Call of Duty. Like it's not like it's the next step. It's not someone like any. It's the same thing with indie movies, or I don't know. This is something because you are a cinephile, you are watching a lot of movies, and you are maybe watching Marvel kind of production, and also a lot of other kind of thing. So for me, as a publisher, at least, I know that people are playing way bigger games than what I produce. But my way of thinking is, okay, people that just play these big games, they will want more. And maybe this is when I present them this really tiny production made by a solo dev in their garage, saying, okay, this might interest you. It's way smaller, it's way more, I don't know, artistically divisive or something, but it will definitely resonate for you. So my train of thought is just don't split that in two. Arthouse is mainstream. It's just difficult.
So it's just overlapping. So we don't have to make a differentiation in terms of audience, because the audience can enjoy both. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the same equipment. It's the same just way of thinking. Like people buying indie games are people that are buying other games. Like they are just buying a lot of games. And this is, I never met with someone that never played like a AAA kind of game and that is really into indie games. Like it's just a compliment. Like it's someone really into games.
So when we talk about the people who make Arthouse games, it is a sort of global thing that is happening. Like there are Arthouse games from all over the world. You started to publish games only from France. Now you publish games from whole of Europe. Have you made any connections or experience outside of your own country with other people who make Arthouse games? What is your experience with that?
Amaze. I think that's where, for me at least, that exchange started. And right now, Blue Sky. Like I think that's where I find the niche which is into the same stuff as I am, with the same or similar political views as I have in that context, which is quite important. So I think there is where that connection starts, and it's lovely to see that that interest is there, and also a lot of support. I feel like a lot of indie game developers and solo developers indie game Arthouse developers moved into those spaces and try to support each other, and I think that's great to see.
Yeah, I can only agree to this. What starts as a very isolated thing, like you work on this weird project, continues to this realization that there are other people around the whole world doing the exact same thing. And then when you first meet, for example, at the Maze, it's this beautiful thing where you kind of find your peers and you kind of realize that it is something that is going on right now, and it doesn't take a lot of effort in a way. Like it is as easy as picking up your laptop and starting to write an idea down, right? So I think this is something I agree on. Like it starts with being online, and then when you continue, you can have like events like Emaze where you meet the people in actual real life.
Maybe to add a counterpoint, I find it personally quite hard to reach through a proper art house outside of Europe. And maybe this is when I talk about the way we make games and the way we finance games. If you are a solo dev or if you're a small team making an art house game, you need money at least, or you need self-resources, the luxury to just pause what you are doing and make games. It's not as simple as opening your laptop, because you need a laptop, you need electricity, you need maybe internet, and you need money to just live. And it's quite striking when you travel around the world. In Europe, we have that chance to have like a lot of public funds that support art in general, and you don't find it in every country. So you don't have like as big of a scene, I think. If you go to, the US, they will be a little bit more commercial oriented, and same thing, even worse in South America. In Africa, there is this generalized problem of access to resources as simple as electricity. So, the world as a whole is like really differently connected to this ability to just make this game exist. So it creates some kind of distortion on who can do that. I'm sorry, because I jumped maybe quite quickly to a political point, but of course it distorts who is making games, who have this luxury of actually being able to.
Can I say something to that?
Sure.
I totally agree. Like the privilege to make a game is definitely there. But I'm always surprised to see at these events and also online, like how diverse the people are who make these games. And I don't think it necessarily requires a laptop to make a game, right? You could just use a pencil and a sheet of paper, or you know what I mean. It's like the only thing that is stopping you from making a game is, right, the access to maybe this idea, or this realization that it is possible to start with it, and of course other horrible things that keep you from it, right?
I think there's also this kind of friction between making games is a privilege, but it's also very much a struggle. So even if you have the privilege, it doesn't feel like a real privilege sometimes. But I wanted to pick up on what you said about who is able to make games, because one of the things that I think about is the power of Arthouse games is how we talk about digital censorship. Because if we make straight games, like straight in a way that we have some sort of narrative direction or story that tells a story like it is, that might be in some countries or some spaces be a problem, because those people would get in trouble very much like in the film industry, where directors get like, you know, into trouble if they make certain films. So how can Arthouse games, in your opinion, like somehow like run against this kind of censorship? Can they really? Or what are your thoughts about that?
All right, I'll try. And again, only from my perspective. For example, with Psychotic Bathtub, we tackle some quite dark themes. And we know that in certain countries we won't be able to officially release because those themes are too dark or not conform with what those countries want to represent. And we had that one case where we had somebody reach out to us, and in that context we just provided the build, the demo, and sent the link, and in that context it was available. But still, I mean, like that's one person, so it's not in that sense possible to say, all right, we hacked Steam and now all of insert country here can play our game. So I don't have a solution, only open source. Put your games up for free.
That's a good point. I feel like one thing that kind of helps this case is that like the wheels of bureaucracy is turning slowly for like a certain regime, and there's a very good example. For example, it's not Arthouse game, but there is, for example, this Minecraft server where they have like a hidden library of forbidden literature, and I think this is one very good example on how to go around the censorship because I feel like the people who suppress this are kind of not familiar exactly with this landscape yet. So I think this is a big benefit of it, is that it can be hidden and in this way reach people that other types of medium might not reach, which I think is a big strength of Arthouse games.
I don't know if it answers the question, but I think the games distribution models right now being so global, if your game is accessible, it can spark discussion or just exchange, some sort of cultural exchange, and this is why we basically fight for having games from all over Europe and having like artists' point of view embedded into the game, just so we can share that, and then having multiple point of views from certain topic, from certain complicated topic, and being able to bring that in like the wider audience possible through these big platforms is actually a useful tool to approach certain topic, and I know that in the past we had with games the power to make people curious about something. It's just as simple as that, like not being in your face political, but just like bringing an alternative point of view on something that you can back with almost documentary or just journalistic work that actually gives some kind of anchorage on what you're saying in the game. So yeah, I don't know. Because I think I'm too abstract here. We produced and published a game a few years ago that's called "Bury Me, My Love." It's a game about it's a story. It's a fiction about a migrant leaving Syria to go to Germany, hopefully, but you don't really know how she will make it. And it's an interactive fiction, and it is basically a tribute to real life stories and real migrants stories, testimonies, sorry. Everything is backed up. We did like this really journalistic approach, making the games and releasing it. Like it was like this huge debate. Like, is it a game? Is it a game because it's not fun? It was like interesting topic, but for another panel. And it reached certain country where this topic would have been perhaps censored or at least not promoted, but having it as a game on global platforms, labeled as a game, it sparked discussions in countries where it was like maybe not too oftenly tackled. So, yeah, short answer, yes.
Yeah, but I think that exactly is the point that Arthouse games also can do, that they spark the conversations without putting a fully developed opinion in front of you, but they can if they want to. Like they can, as we know, everything is political. So even if you're trying to be non-political, you are political, and it's an opinion. But you can also try to be more political if you want to. Like Arthouse games can play a certain kind of role in politics in a certain area if they want to, like a tool of resistance to activate people or to highlight stuff that's going wrong in certain countries, right? So that also can be part of the Arthouse game definition, maybe, that they're always a little bit at least political, even if they don't want to be. And the same goes with like the culture of remembrance. Like if we remember history, or if we try to put our ongoing situation right now into something that like transcends centuries, as I said at the beginning, that is maybe at some point then a piece of cultural remembrance, that is also something that maybe Arthouse games can do. Is that something that you also think about when you make or when you publish games, when you select games, because you get hundreds of applications? Is that something you think about, that your game might be at some point something that might be used as a cultural point of remembrance?
I'm not thinking that much ahead, to be honest. I'm just trying to finish the game at the moment. But I mean, in that context, again, speaking from the point of mental health games in that context, I hope that we can, not a milestone, we're not big enough for that, but I think we can try to hope that we can show a reality or a possibility with our game which shows it's possible to create something like this. It's possible to be entertaining and very, very, very dark and sad at the same time. It's possible to have fun with dark topics in that context and still being very respectful about it. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, for me it's the same. I don't think about the future of my games a lot. But what I can hope for is that people who take the time to experience them kind of get into this pipeline where it's like they discover that something like this exists, and then they seek more of this type of experience, and with that they come into a certain community, and usually these communities are quite progressive. So I think this is a very good thing, and I feel like this is something I hope will live on with it, and yeah.
Yes. No, but we have, like, as publishers, we receive hundreds of projects a year, and one of the criteria that I try to check when I analyze a project is, will it be memorable somehow? Like, will it be, I don't know, just you will think about it after you play it. Like, it's not like a one-off that you will just throw just to pass time. Like, it's something that will leave a mark on you. You will talk about it during dinner with your loved one, or I don't know. Like, this is something that worth thinking about, and maybe this is just something that will make you curious about an artist, or maybe about a genre, an architectural movement, or I don't know, just something. It will make you curious about something. So yeah, perhaps this is one of the criteria of Arthouse. And yeah, I try to, because as publisher, we how do you say that? Like, you allow project to exist. So you want to, and we have very limited resources in the end, because we are still public service. So we need to choose wisely and to support the game that can have an impact somehow, at least for the makers, but also for the players somehow. So yeah, having in mind, is this topic common? Is this something new? Is this a fresh take, a fresh point of view? Is it originally approached and embodied? Yes.
You said you decide what you can make happen, the same as you might decide what you want to make. So do you think that there's also a certain responsibility that you have when you create or publish your work?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just as you said before, everything is political in that context, and I think that's something many game designers tend to forget. We have a responsibility with what we create and what we show, and we have to. I think we can't expect an industry, if we wish it to change by just reproducing what we don't appreciate and don't like. And I think yes, there's a lot of responsibility involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I personally feel a lot of responsibility for the people who play my games and the community surrounding it. So I want to make sure that people who get into this community know what our values are and what we support and what we stand for. And I think that with this you can reach the most with your work, because I personally feel like people want to be part of something like this, and when they want to be part of something like this, they start to reflect on themselves, and they start to they start to be very open to new ideas and to maybe even a political shift, which I noticed a lot actually. So yeah, this is where I feel a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, great responsibilities, and I think that this is the case for responsibility regarding the players, like giving them something that is worth playing, but also responsibility regarding the people who are making games, helping them making it in the best way possible, in the best conditions. And yeah, make sure that everything fits together. Yeah.
And when we talk about responsibility, what about the responsibility to the subject matter that the games are about? Like, do you feel a need to, I don't know, if you do a game about psychotic episodes, do you do a lot of research? Do you interview other people? Or do you think, no, this is just how I feel about it, and this is my personal, not your personal story, but my take on it? Do you sense a sort of responsibility there? Or when you select games, do you, like, if you see, okay, this is a game about a topic that might be a bit critical, do you talk about the devs about that? And how do you deal with that kind of responsibility?
So in our case, we work a lot with affected people. So in my family, for example, we have, or like I myself, for example, don't have a psychotic disorder, but in my family we have quite a few of them. So I grew up in them, so I don't really have that problem of like knowing how to deal with them, me personally. But and that was the beginning for me. And then I started to reach out to a bigger network, and we started to work with many different people who are affected, not just psychotic episodes, different things. And so we always go through that testing round. So, for example, I write something, I send it to them, they say, yes, we feel represented, or no, you did a bad job, and then I go back and cry a bit and then I retry. But I think it's all about, like, you have to do the research, especially if you work with topics like that. It's so important that you stay connected to what your source is, because I think it's easy to fall into stereotypes. It's easy to lose the connection to what you are actually doing and trying to represent or make approachable. And then there's also the problem, we can't, in our case, reproduce naturalistically what a psychotic episode is, because it changes for every person. So what we did is we just took all of the experience into one and tried to give different glimpses and different moments of it. So yeah, but yes, research, yes, important research.
I can't talk too much about the subject matter because most of my games are non-verbal, so they focus more on the universal experience of humans. So if I would make a game with a more strong narrative, I would definitely do the research, and I would feel also responsibility to do some deep education on that topic before I put anything on the screen.
Maybe this is the time where I talk about Wednesdays. So a game that we just released that is about someone recovering from a childhood trauma that is actually something really spread. He is a survivor of incest. It concerns one person out of 10, so it is like really widespread. But at the same time, it's really taboo, and this is a topic that we never saw approached in games. So really quite common actually to talk about this subject in movies or documentaries or graphic novel or I don't know. But legally, it was really a gray area to publish and to produce and to publish some that kind of game, and it required a lot of research, consulting with legal consultant on what are we able to do, what are we able to say, especially because it is auto-fiction or reality inspired by the real life and real experience of Pierre. So how do we design, write, and communicate, almost marketize that kind of game? I never experienced that long of a checklist of don't and do's and don't. The amount of words I'm not even allowed to say right now about the game, it is quite impressive, and this is the kind of route that you are willing to go on when you release these games. And yeah, responsibilities here again toward the player, because you don't want to just hurt everyone playing this. So the way it's written, the amount of trigger warnings, content warnings, legal warnings, it is quite impressive. And this is a whole different experience to publish that and go through the Steam route if you want to publish that on the big audience platform. So yeah, really interesting, and because we said that these games are made for conversation, to spark something in the community, it is really important to have in mind that there's a huge amount of work before releasing the game to build up a community and someone to talk to. And when the game is released, you need to talk to these people if you want to have this mindset of sparking conversation. And this is where we onboarded associations and that kind of non-profit organization, just to make sure that there are people available to follow up the conversation that we sparked, because it would have been a little bit selfish if we just publish something that triggers so much without thinking about what's next.
Yeah, I think it's great that you go through all those things and make all these extra efforts and provide additional support. It just shows that that's exactly the power of Arthouse games. There would be a lot of more things about Arthouse games that we could talk about, but time's running short, and I want to give people in the audience the possibility, the option to ask questions. Maybe we can briefly play the Wednesday video gameplay while you think about the question that you want to ask, and then you just raise your hand and I try to see you. But maybe we can play the video real quick. I don't know if it's on hand or not. If not, just raise your hand if you have a question and I bring you my microphone. I'm pretty sure you have questions. Don't be shy. Yes.
Hi, thanks for the panel. So like when you were like trying to describe what the definition of the Arthouse games, I was thinking like, because I run this like community where we kind of like I call it, I don't actually call it Arthouse games because I don't want to scare people away kind of, but I've been calling it as like art and experimental games focused, and I started in Tokyo, which is like a kind of place like where I don't know, Arthouse games is, I think, struggling to exist kind of because like for the lack of funding and stuff like that. Like you have to be a little bit more commercial and everything. And anyway, like I was thinking like maybe there were like some things that we can't really communicate like verbally because there are no words to describe some of the feelings and stuff. And like, I don't know, I was feeling like if you've ever felt that way about Arthouse things.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just to put a label on it is very difficult, right? Because you want to feel comfortable about it, and I think it's also very different for all kinds of different artists, right? So I've encountered many artists who have other words for their work. For example, real-time media art is what is going around right now because it kind of encapsulates everything that is not only you sitting in front of a screen with the controller, but also like alt game and non-game is also very popular, which is kind of contradictory but fun. Yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
I can not provide an answer, but an anecdote about this question of labeling that is, I think, really French. But I was quite surprised to when we were on the road pitching "Bury Me My Love." I had like this English journalist really not shocked to say that "Bury Me My Love" is a game, because I think that game in English, the term is way more neutral than jeu in French. That would involve the fact of it's more like play, and it would imply that it is for kids or for to have fun. And because Bury Me My Love is a game, but it's also a drama, but it's also a fiction, and this is based on real life of migrants. In French, it's really weird to say that we will play with the life of migrants, basically. So it was a huge debate in France, and the French journalists were really picky on that. Like, why would you call that a video game? It's not a video game because you can't win and because it's not fun and blah blah blah. And yeah, I'm actually I'm way more comfortable with English with games because it feels like it defined, like it's a set of rules, or it's like it's just drawing the perimeter of what the work is and how it works, and not how you should feel playing it. So yeah, just know that in French it's worst. That's what I was saying.
One more question, maybe? We have time for one more, if someone has one. I have... yeah. Wait, I bring you my mic.
Thank you so much. I really liked what you said, that a game can be with a pen and paper. And I guess all the examples are very digital. I wonder if you've got any experience with offline kind of games as well.
Oh, I mean, definitely. I struggle to find game examples right now in my head. But if you are in the community, then you realize that a lot of people use these like non-digital ways to make very short ideas come to life. I remember there was one game also as part of Games Meetup, I think, in Tokyo, where it was just about giving someone a high five. I can't give you more detail on what it was about, but it was very, very simple in its way, but it worked very well. And I would also put the label artsy to it because it was definitely very experimental. And yeah, I think this is very underappreciated, like this non-digital side of it. Like I feel like it is more accessible, and this makes it very valuable, in my opinion.
Anyone else want to talk about that? No? Yes? No? Okay. I think we're all out of time already anyway, and I don't want to stress the whole organizing group. But you can play all the things that we talked about that they made, or like not all of them, but some of them. At the on-screen booth outside, you can play Psychotic Bathtub by Natasha. You can play 30 Birds by Ram Games, published by Arte. And Wednesday, you can also play outside by Pierre Corbinet, The Pixel Hunt, Exaheva, Christophe Jalati. And also you can play Neo-Brutalism of Tomorrow by Moshe. I really would have liked to talk about brutalism and aesthetics, but we don't have the time. But you can talk to us. We are outside at the booth a little bit more, and you can maybe talk about aesthetics or other things that you have to talk about when you think about Arthouse games. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your interest. Thank you to my panelists that you talked to me about this topic of Arthouse games, and thank you for your amazing work. Have a great rest of your day at Republica. Thank you.
Thank you.